Okay. So here we are with the Gongchik. So at the bottom of page 213, the Vinaya, this Sobish's notes. Remember that what Sobish does is that he frequently he gives in the notes basically further explanations on the Vajra statement that he derives from Dorshema and Rinjangma. Yeah? Remembering that Dorshema and Rinjangma are the two Gongchik commentaries that came very soon after the Gongchik was put together by Sherab Jungme. So some people think that Rinjangma, named after the author Rinchen Changchuk, was Sherab Jungme's brother, in fact. And Dorshema, named after Dorje Sherab, was Sherab Jungme's student. So Rinjangma and Dorshema, in some ways, then reflect most closely Sherab Jungme's explanation of these Vajra statements. So, which then, puts us closest to Kyopa Rinpoche's own concerns. Choki Drakpa's commentary, which is the commentary we're reading now, came about 400 years later. According to Sobish, since he has read all of them, he says that basically Chodrak's commentary still follows in the style of the early commentaries, except then, on top of that, Chodrak needs to, from time to time, respond to criticisms and challenges that has been raised by other traditions towards the Gongchik. So he has to do some responding. Yeah. So this book, this whole book is very useful as well because of the way that Sobish has highlighted Dorshema and Rinjangma for us. But then, of course, remember, it's still Sobish's choices that are reflected in the notes. Yeah? So here, an important part is how the Dorshema how the early commentaries, and generally I would say Kyoba Rinpoche's views, is the relative importance of monastic, those who hold the monastic vows, and those who don't hold the monastic vows, in terms of the relative, on the relative level, the importance of these two. So here it says, the Dorshema briefly discusses the role of householders as bodhisattvas and mantra practitioners. First, in an aside, it remarks that in the Manjushri Buddhashetra Sutra, it says that no white-clad householders occur in the Buddha field of Manjushri, and that all bodhisattvas there are ordained, meaning all bodhisattvas in Manjushri's Pure Land are ordained as monks and nuns. It also states that according to the Kalachakra commentary, the Vimala Prabha, of the three kinds of gurus, the fully ordained monk is supreme, the novice is middling, and the householder the lowest. Furthermore, one should not call a householder guru unless he has reached the Arya level. And unless a lay master, Acharya, Acharya itself is not lay. It is translating the word master. Acharya could be monastic Acharya or lay Acharya. Unless a lay master has reached the Arya level, to make offerings to him is to show disrespect towards the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So this is in the Kalachakra commentary with Malaprabha. So Dorje Sherab, brings up these points. So Jigten Sumgön's intention is clearly that lay practitioners, non-monastic, do have a place in bodhisattva and mantra practices, but that ordained gurus and acharyas are to be more highly valued because they possess the additional qualities of the Vinaya, which is common to all vehicles, because they have taken explicitly these qualities of the Vinaya. Therefore, on the relative level, like respect is to be shown to them. Because in a way, you are then signaling to everyone the preciousness of the Vinaya. And among the Vinaya trainings, that of a fully ordained monk or nun is the most thorough, the most complete. Okay? And so it should be shown towards them. Now, of course, the way that this is actually translated, it varies, right? For example, there are non-monastic teachers in the Tibetan tradition. So in the Tibetan tradition, it's a little bit more messy because there are many teachers who are not, don't hold the monk's vows. But the great ones like Dunjom Rinpoche, Khyentse Rinpoche, in the Nyingma lineage, for example, those lamas, no question, people trust in their realization that even monks and nuns, very old monks and nuns would pay homage to them, would prostrate to them. There are also some of these masters who make it a point to not publicly receive prostrations from monks and nuns. And there, it's very good example in the way that they're setting. And they say, even if you think I have qualities greater than you, yeah, but for the sake of signaling to everyone else the preciousness of the vows, you, as someone who hold more vows, should not be seen prostrating to me, someone who doesn't hold as many vows as you. So sometimes that is emphasized. Then my own footnote to this is, it's a little ironic, because if we follow literally that line of reasoning, then everybody should prostrate to fully ordained nuns, because they have even more vows than fully ordained monks. If you say that to the monks, they will get very upset. Not all of them, but many of them will get very upset. We cannot prostrate the nuns, But if we really follow this reasoning to its logical conclusion, yeah, the more vows, right, is more protection. And since monks have 250, nuns has 300 over. And many of this, it's not that the Buddha wanted to restrict the nuns more. Many of these has to do with like clothing, I mean, even like rules related to menstruation, how to practice hygiene. And so it's that kind of things as well. Not all, but in that way, like I see there's some hypocrisy, Sometimes you find discussions like, oh, the nuns have more vows because, they are like, somehow they are, women are, have more afflictive emotions, so they need more vows, But then elsewhere, you'll find discussions where, where the monastic, vows is so important. Yeah? And then they say, so you have to respect it. Then in that case, I would say then, fully ordained nuns really should receive, the most public honor, because they hold the most number of vows. So that's my own commentary on this part. But this is, really important, I think, to show that we should signal to others, the preciousness of the vows. So regardless of the realization of the individuals, in public, those who do not formally carry the vows should not, like kind of without any concern, kind of proudly receive like prostrations, from the those who do hold those vows. As Kenjan Rinpoche puts it, when Jiten Sumgön achieved awakening, when he fully awakened, he fully understood all the qualities of the Vinaya, and he immediately took full ordination. I mean, not literally immediately, like subsequently, he took the full ordination. So Jiten Sumgön himself, for a long time, did not take the vows of a monk. It is said that even when Pamadrupa urged him, and said, you should become a monk now, then he said no. He was quite stubborn himself. He said, no. He says, I don't need that. So his reasoning is sort of like, I'm already keeping them. I don't need. elsewhere, it is said that elsewhere, so this is like, there are many perspectives on this. So we should not become fundamentalists about this. We want to try to understand, what is being emphasized. Elsewhere, in the biography of, like, for example, one of the great Kadampa masters, Dromtonpa. Dromtonpa was Atisha's main student. And it's said that Dromtonpa is actually emanation of Avalokiteshvara. So in that relationship, even though Atisha was his teacher, it is said that, in fact, his realization is actually higher than Atisha. Yeah, Dromtonpa. So in Dromtonpa's biography, Dromtonpa never became a monk. He was a lay upasaka, which is ironic, the Kadampa tradition emphasizes very strongly the importance of taking the monastic vows. But the very first lineage master in Tibet, he remained a lay person. But he wasn't like a lay person like Marpa was, having a family and everything. He kept the vows of celibacy, Dromtonpa, but he just never took formally the monk's vows. And so there is an explanation in in Dromtonpa's biography, the reasons why he did not do it. And one of the reasons there is that he wanted to also teach others that simply having the vows should not become a source of pride. So he's teaching a lesson, it says, on the other hand, to those monks and nuns who have the vows and think and they are so great and so mighty. So it's said that Dromton wanted to show that. And then Dromton also wanted to show that the importance is to continually develop renunciation, regardless of one's external appearance. So that's also mentioned. Furthermore, the Dorshema states that there are 3 types of Vajra holders in the practice of mantra: supreme, middling, and lowest, of which the 2 higher types are ordained based on the Vinaya Pratimoksha. Now here it's talking about monastic ordination. To attain Buddhahood, one should practice all 3 types of vows and not abandon any of them. They are like food, drink, and clothing that are equally necessary for kings, ministers, and subjects. If one of the 3 is missing, they will die. So here, Vinaya Pratimoksha, in this context here, it seems to be signaling only the monastic vows. But like I said, the broader Vinaya Pratimoksha, like the content of this chapter, isn't just talking about monastic pratimoksha. Even lay people have pratimoksha vows, as in individual liberation vows. So even lay people have pratimoksha. Not, the technical use of pratimoksha, but the broader meaning of pratimoksha. Yeah, so we should understand that. Any questions or comments?
The vows signal intent. The vows are public declaration of intent.
Mm-hmm.
And intent creates karma.
Yes.
The other striking thing to me is that the Buddha himself
Mm-hmm.
and the other major Buddhas,
Yes.
Manjushri,
Yes.
Samantabhadra,
Mm-hmm.
so on and so forth, they did not take vows, did they?
Oh yeah, Buddha Shakyamuni, is a fully ordained monk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. And then Manjushri, yeah, like the great bodhisattvas are often depicted, not as monks, but that at some point, right, in their lives, in their training, they were monks or nuns or, and for that matter, dogs and cats and everything. Yeah, then a lot of the Mahasiddhas, the kind of the torch bearers, right, of the Vajrayana tradition, did not live as monks. So it's complicated, this issue. So I think, like, again, if you are fundamentalist about it, then it becomes very narrow, at least in my opinion. But if you have a broader understanding, okay, what is being emphasized here, then you don't need to be too rigid about it. So in other words, I think it's all about training ourselves. Yeah. If you happen to be a monk or nun, then you be humble. If you happen to be a teacher who is not a monk and nun, and a lot of people respect you, you be humble. Then beyond beyond the point of being humble, then to understand that the reason the Buddha gave these vows is that these vows will protect us. And so, of course, we praise the vows. Of course, we respect the vows. Of course, we signal to others the preciousness of these vows. This chapter helps us to reorient ourselves in terms of the vows. We often relate to the vows as if they are like things to make life difficult. Oh, I'm not going to take the bodhisattva vow. It will, limit. I can't do this. I can't do that. I don't want to take the vow of not drinking. What if I just like to have a beer sometimes? So we look at these vows as like, things that complicate our lives. But this chapter especially wants us to understand that, the Buddha gave these vows because these vows will protect us and free us. And for that reason, we should signal to others how precious these vows are in whatever way we can. And not undermine. Then within that context, there are countless examples, of non-monastic practitioners, achieving very advanced, Milarepa, for example, But then, of course, even here it says, yeah, but those are Aryas. Those have achieved that state. So that's fine with them. They say, but for the rest of you, who are not there, then follow the common kind of hierarchy, so to say. With the understanding that this common hierarchy was set up by the Buddha to emphasize the preciousness of these vows, and not like to puff up, the pride of a monk or a nun. And so as we go on more in this chapter, then I think we'll begin to see all the different sides of this point. This point is not an easy point, but this is a very important point. So many people claim that the Vinaya is not Mahayana, since it is only ascertained as the lower vehicle. And so this is continuing from the first statement. This is elaborating, right? The first statement says, no, the Vinaya Pratimoksha applies to all levels of the training. Then here specifically it addresses that idea, as I said, like say in Japanese Buddhism, this idea although originally arose because there were, historical circumstance that made it impossible, right, for one of these great masters to establish a new tradition in Japan, because there's an older faction with powerful political ties that mandated that if you want to become ordained, you can only do it at their monastery. But then eventually, that this idea, that, oh, Mahayana have their own ordination, don't need these Vinaya Pratimoksha ordination. We just need the Bodhisattva Pratimoksha ordination. So here, the statement specifically kind of refute that. And it says, so Kyopa's statement is, it is obvious that the Vinaya is even more present within the Mahayana. So Kyopa Rinpoche actually says, not only is the Vinaya not Mahayana, not only is the Vinaya not Mahayana, but the Vinaya is even more important in the Mahayana. Yeah, so commentary. Even though the Vinaya mentioned in the previous Vajra statement was taught as being common to all vehicles, there was a temporary teaching. That was a temporary teaching for guiding others. The essence of what we maintain is that it is even more present within the Mahayana. So Chodra says, that in fact, the first statement that says that it is equally applies to all three levels. He says even that, compared to this statement, you can say that the first statement is just a preliminary statement. Here is the full statement, which is, especially in Mahayana, Vinaya is even more essential. Vinaya is even more important. The reason for this are the following. First, the manner of cultivating the resolve for supreme awakening is taught in the Vinaya. This is established through many quotations from such scriptures as the Vaisajya Vastu of the Vinaya. It teaches that previously, when our teacher Buddha Shakyamuni was born as Prince Prabhasa, having heard the sound of the word Buddha, he cultivated the resolve for supreme awakening. Moreover, in the same text, it is taught that when Shakyamuni was the potter Brihadyuti, he offered alms to the great Shakyamuni and cultivated the resolve and so forth. So what this commentary is saying is, if you look at the various books under the Vinaya basket, remember the three baskets, the Tripitaka, the Sutra basket, the Vinaya basket, the Abhidharma basket. So here is basically quoting texts from the Vinaya basket to show how there are numerous stories in the Vinaya basket that shows that Buddha Shakyamuni himself, when he was training as a bodhisattva, produced the resolve again and again. The resolve to become a bodhisattva. So here it's actually, I think it's Chodra's way of saying, which frankly to say to you, I'm finding that this has more to do with the way Tibetans think about the three Pitakas. Because in some ways, like for example, remembering that this commentary by Chodra, right, it came 400 years later. And meanwhile, Sakya Pandita and other Sakya scholars have attacked or criticized Kyopa for confusing the different categories. So they in particular will say the Vinaya is a matter of the lesser vehicle. In the great vehicle is the Mahayana vows that are most central. So what Chodra is doing here is kind of responding to that kind of thinking by saying, hey, even in the Vinaya basket, which is supposedly of the law of the vehicle, you find many references to generating the body-mind, generating bodhicitta. So how can you say that the Vinaya is separate from generating the body-mind? So that's basically this first point here. Secondly, it is also the case that the completion of the path of the six perfections is taught in the Vinaya. So again, he's quoting like the Pratimoksha Sutra, he's quoting the Vinaya Vastu, the Vinaya Sutra Gavastu, and the Vinaya commentaries. So that's what he's doing here. And so first he shows how the texts that are found in the Vinaya collection has a lot of examples of generating the body-mind, generating bodhicitta. So then he says, how can you say the Vinaya is not related to Mahayana? Then he goes on in the next page, page 216, in quoting Mahayana scriptures to show how can you say Mahayana has nothing to do with the Vinaya. Then he quotes like Ratnavali, which is composed by Nagarjuna. Then Srimala Devi Sutra, one of the sutras that talks about Srimala Devi was actually taught by a queen, a lay figure. But in there, she talks about, she praises the Pratimoksha and the Vinaya. So for example, the two dharmas called Pratimoksha and Vinaya have one meaning, but their letters are different. So then, Mahayana Sutra Lankara, he quotes from there. So here, he really is addressing those Sakyapa criticisms. Like 217, he quotes there. And so if you look at the footnote, 494, 495, clear differentiation. And that is the Domsum Rabgye by Sakya Pandita. Basically, Sakya Pandita complains and say, this way of thinking confuses the different categories. The different categories should be kept separate. I don't, if you ask me, I think sometimes there's too much, but I totally understand, of course, why Chodra has to do that. But for us, I think, without needing to get into those points, is to understand Kyopa's original reason for emphasizing the statements, right? So that's more central to understand, rather than what Drigong people said later when other people criticize that statement. First, we need to understand the fundamental reasons for that statement. So in that way, I think if we look at Sobish's notes, because he draws his notes, right, from pre-Sakya Pandita criticisms. So he doesn't have to. So Dorshema, Rinjangma don't have to kind of be defensive. Instead, Dorshema and Rinjangma just explains, Kyopa's intent. So notes on 3.2. The commentators argue in 3 steps, namely by stating that the Vinaya teaches 3 important aspects of the Mahayana. In the Vinaya, collection, you can see the resolve for awakening is taught, the completion of the perfections through dedication, and the attainment of perfect Buddhahood. So he said, you know, the commentators, whether Rinjangma, Dorshema, or later, Chodra, says, if you look at the Vinaya collection, you see numerous examples and references to the importance of generating bodhicitta, the importance of completing the path, and the importance of attaining state of Buddha. And so clearly, Vinaya is not limited to lower vehicle, but it's a matter of the great vehicle. So the first point, according to Jigten Sungye, the cultivation of the resolve is a Mahayana teaching because, as stated already in chapter 1, statement 21, the difference between Hinayana and Mahayana is the cultivation of the resolve for awakening. Thus, the Vinaya, which teaches this resolve too, is in this respect a Mahayana teaching. The commentaries refer to the Baisajya Vastu, which is one of the subjects of the Vinaya. According to one passage, you know, again, quoting this, may I, so in there, you know, it says, the Buddha in one of his past lives, he says, may I, through all the merit that arises from caring for all sentient beings and from giving, become the Buddha of this world and liberate beings from plagues and epidemics. And through this extensive offering, may I become a self-arising Buddha among beings. May the multitude of beings not liberated by the earlier Buddhas be liberated by my offering of gifts. So this is to show that, in fact, the real intent of the Vinaya is actually Mahayana. So this second Vajra statement, whereas the first Vajra statement says there are the three levels of Buddhist practice, Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana, or Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana, but Vinaya is equally relevant to all three. Then in this second statement, it takes it a step further by saying, in fact, not only is the Vinaya not to be considered a lower vehicle issue, in fact, the true meaning of the Vinaya is actually the Mahayana. So these are the three reasons given in the early commentaries especially, which is one, if you look at the Vinaya collection, you'll see many examples of bodhicitta, relative bodhicitta, aspiration. Then the completion of the perfections through dedication and the attainment of perfect Buddhahood. Any questions, comments?
Could you tell us some texts of Vinaya collection?
Oh, here.
To read?
Oh, no. It's those texts are very complicated, you know. It's not things that we just pick up and read. And not much of that is translated. In the education of a Tibetan monk, like a proper education, like in the Gelugpa system, right? They don't read the Vinaya until year 10 or 12. Yeah, because they say it's too profound. That you should not read that because you will come up with wrong understanding.
We can read the interpretation of this text as
yes, yeah. Like here, like this chapter is enough, you know.
Is
I'm not saying that you cannot read, but I'm making a point that that if you don't have yet a clear understanding of how to understand the Vinaya text, because the Vinaya text has so many stories, you might misunderstand and think, that these stories are just yeah, they're funny, they're kind of strange, they're kind of weird, like even Jataka stories. I said this is so ironic, like in the West, Jataka, if you look up, like wisdom publication Shambhala, Jatakas, all Jataka books are like books for little kids, because they have these like stories, that involves animals and animals talking. And so in the West, they think, oh, Jataka is for like kids. But in the Gelugpa, for example, education system, to become a geshe, you have to take at least 12 to 15 years, right? You don't study Jataka, you don't study Vinaya until year 12 or 13 or 14. This is after you have mastered, Madhyamaka, you have mastered logic, you have mastered debate, you have mastered, all the different tenet system, the highest, the basic, everything, Abhidharma. You study 10, 12 years, then only you study the Vinaya and the Jatakas. In that sense, the Gelugpa way of approaching that is in agreement with Kyoba Rinpoche. In that Kyoba Rinpoche says, like the next point, like statement 3, all of the precious discipline conduct is the gnosis, is the wisdom of omniscience. This is in response to those people who claim that the disciplined conduct, Shila, training in rejecting and accepting, right? This phrase, accepting and rejecting, is like a practice for only the Shravakas. In this case, meaning like the lowest level of practitioner, they have to be careful about what to adopt and what to abandon. And that disciplined conduct, Shila, is all about that. Whereas we on the higher level, we are beyond accepting and abandoning. Oh, we are all free. So then Gopal Rinpoche here says, actually, the disciplined conduct taught in the Vinaya, all those rules is based on Buddha's true wisdom. And not some kind of arbitrary preliminary rule that he gave for idiots, which is how sometimes people present these vows, right? And say, oh, they're just for people who need them. People who are already advanced, they don't need these things. And Kyopa Rinpoche said, you have no idea, he says.
I don't know if it has relationship with the things that we are talking, but recently, I heard an interview with a philosopher that says that determination, the courage to begin something, is the mother of all the virtues.
The what? Say that again.
Is the mother, the determination of the courage, or the courage to begin something, to begin to practice something.
Yes.
Is the mother of all the virtues.
Sure.
Yes. The mother, because if we don't have the determination to begin, the other virtues don't come.
Yes, that determination is very important. The courage, the determination, the resolve. And so that's why, speaking of the resolve, is the bodhicitta resolve. is the mother, it will produce all the other results. If we don't have that, then everything is gone. Yeah.
Sorry for my pronunciation.
No, it's good. It's good. And even the mighty 10-stage bodhisattvas are unable to come up with those vows and trainings given in the Vinaya. So only Buddha is able to give those prescription. Yeah? So I've said, we have to see what the Buddha gave as prescriptions and not like prohibitions, right? Or permission or prohibitions, but we have to see it as prescription and proscription. Now, of course, I also said, but we should not think that, oh, therefore, it's not so important. No. If you want to get well, then it's really, really important that you don't underestimate the prescription and the proscription. There is a tendency that kind of relates to like these vows and say, oh, this is cultural, like during the Buddha's time, people blah, 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 and therefore the Buddha blah, 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 I mean, to be frank, I would say, if you look at the list of the 250 of the monks or 300 of the nuns, you can find that, that's been translated. Some of it, yeah, like I said, when you look, you think, oh, that must be some weird Indian things, but don't be so quick to just say, oh, that must be some weird Indian thing, like it's not relevant to us. To me, again, I'm confessing that, I don't so literally, at this point, my understanding, and of course with the understanding, hopefully my understanding will evolve and become, more and more clear. But at this point in my understanding, I would say, yeah, if you look at those 250 or 227, there are some of those rules that I really look and cannot see anything beyond it's particular to Indian culture during the Buddha's time, right? Then if I take to heart what Kyopo Rinpoche is saying in this chapter, all the different statements in there, then I also know, but according to Kyopo Rinpoche, no, it's not just about Indian culture and Indian weirdness during the Buddha's time, but what the Buddha gave there has relevance even now, right? So you have like two things, right, that are not exactly going in the same direction. And I want to encourage you all to be okay with that, Meaning you don't have to either say, oh, Kyopo Rinpoche said this, I have to believe exactly like this. It's not going to work, This is just trying to brainwash yourself. This is not based on experience and realization. This is just based on forcing yourself. It's not going to work. The other side also not going to work. Like, oh, what Kyopo Rinpoche says is it's just, another weird Tibetan thing now. And there's the weird Indian thing. And then not at all thinking, well, there's the weird and confused thing that I am thinking now, right? So that approach also will not work. To say, I know better. That, oh, this is just some weird Indian thing. Oh, this is just some weird Tibetan thing. That attitude for sure is not going to work. And even this other attitude, like, oh, because Kyopo Rinpoche said it this way, and therefore I will force myself to believe this is true. Personal opinion, right? And my own personal position on this is to say that too is not going to work. Then How might it work? Let the two be there at the same time. No need to so quickly want to be a good Buddhist or a good Drigong person. Understand that more important than having the appearance or even just appearance to yourself, oh, I'm a good Buddhist, I'm a good Drigong person, I'm a good follower of Kyopa. More important than that is really how can these teachings change the way we understand things, the way we see things. How can they, even when they seem to kind of not be resolved, even the not resolved nature can become a productive way of clarifying our own understanding. I think that is a more honest way, and that is a more effective way in actually developing true experience and understanding, rather than just following party line. I call it that. Oh, because I've joined this club, and I want to be a good member of the club, I'm just going to follow that. It will work for 10 years, it will work for 15 years, it will work for 20 years. And then when some obstacle arises, everything falls apart. I have seen people in those situations. And, it can be prevented, such situations. Anyway. Yes, Omar?
I try to imagine what would be the point to take Vinaya vows if you are the only person in the world. I mean, in a sense, more settled. You take these vows to relate with others, relate with bodhicitta.
Yes.
No, and you.
But you're not the only person in the world, right?
No, I know. I think.
Yeah. So then, no question there. So what is the question? There is a question there, but that is not the question. So say more.
You said something about the Vinaya vows. It's in a sense is
relation.
Mahayana.
Yes, it's Mahayana. Yes,
it's Mahayana, and yes, I am. I don't know how to say. I am agree with you with this point, because you take these vows. If you don't take these vows, how you can relate with others?
Right. Yeah. So this is for relating with others in a way, and of course, it's not just like it's relating with others in a deep way, right? It's not just like superficially relating with others. And this is really how we like how we operate in the world, and so these vows are given, right? Now, of course, again, as we study more this chapter, and it's quite clear, Kyopa Rinpoche will say, so in fact, so in the Pratimoksha, Vinaya Pratimoksha, there are eight, depending on how you count. So fully ordained monk, fully ordained nun, novice nun, novice monk. Those are 4, right? Then lay person, lay woman, layman. So these are 6, right? Then there's one called the probationary nun. That is 7. So there are 7 kind of types of holders, so to say, of the Vinaya Pratimoksha. Then obviously in these 7 groups, right, there are different number of vows in these 7 groups. Then sometimes the 8th one, they are the 8 precepts that is taken for like 1 day or 2 days. But these other 7 is taken for a long time. So there are these 7, right? So of these 7, of course, the fully ordained monks and nuns, in the sense you can say they got the full coverage. Think of like the vows as like insurance, you know. So they get the full coverage, the fanciest insurance policy. They got that. Then those of us who don't have that, you know, we have the basic policy, you know, like your drivers, you know, it's collision, right? We say just collision protection. So if we take the least number of vows, then we have the least number of protection, the basic protection of collision. So if you get into a car accident, you'll be protected. But if anything else happened, you know, then you're on your own, in that sense. Then, of course, you know, the psychology, the underlying principle is the more the vows, right, then the more comprehensive your insurance policy. But of course, that doesn't mean, you know, like in your case, you know, you're like, okay, you know, I already planned, you know, maybe like next year, you know, I'm going to marry my girlfriend, you know. Then of course you should not take the monk's vows, because that's, you know, blatantly, you know, these two are in conflict, you know. Even if it says, you know, it's better to take the vows and break them than not to take the vows and break them, then of course on the relative level, it cannot be the case that, okay, tomorrow is the wedding, you know, I'm going to take the monk's vows tonight, and so that tomorrow, you know, when I break that vow, you know, it will be better. You know, no, of course we don't do it that way, you know. The point is more that we need to understand how we relate to these vows. That they are offering us full coverage, less coverage, and minimal coverage. So in order to practice more than this level, to progress to the Bodhisattva vow, to the Tantric Samaya, at the very least, we need to have the collision insurance policy, the cheapest insurance policy. In part, some of us, right, cannot buy the higher insurance because we don't have enough money, right? That's often the case, you know. It's people who cannot afford it, who cannot buy the comprehensive policy. That's why samsara sucks. The less you have, the less policy you can buy. The more you have, the more policy you can buy. So in that way, it's very unfair. But of course, you know, samsara is a mess. So if we don't have enough merit, sonam, then we cannot buy that, you know, full policy.
We can still drive safely and avoid accidents.
Correct. Yes, exactly. So that's the inner level, drive safely. Yeah, that's a good point, you know. Yeah. You can still drive, and you can still drive safely. But then, of course, when somebody comes out of nowhere to hit you, that's when, if you have a comprehensive policy, then, you're more protected. But yes, driving is still possible. Yeah, so anyway, so tomorrow is the start of a 4-class on the 3 principal aspects of the path. And it meets every other Tuesday. I've already shared on the WhatsApp group the Zoom information. But if you don't want to Zoom, it will be live stream on the Facebook. For Urban Dharma. Then you can watch it there. So that's a short series coming up, starting tomorrow, and then every other Tuesday. Then, of course, it'll be recorded and put on YouTube too. I know some of you already have commitments for Tuesday evenings. Then on the weekend, on the 10th, 11th, we have an in-person program in Asheville. Obviously, many of you are not here. Then, even those of you who are here for various reasons, you will not be able to join us. At this point, we don't know yet whether we will be live streaming. We might be able to record and put on YouTube later, but we want to check the connectivity strength and all of that. So we are not sure yet in what form and what way we're going to be able to share. So we'll figure that out. And once we know more, we'll let you know. And also a word is that it's ironic today's, at least at the first part, 28 people turn up because I started cleaning up the WhatsApp group, removing people who have not been turning up. Then it's like, some magical reason, quickly the other people also turned up. So I did not delete. To clean up the WhatsApp group it's not like punishment or anything. No, it's just I don't like when I think it kind of, in a psychic way, it drains our energy. If we want to do something, we do something. If we don't want to do, we don't do. No guilt is necessary. It's silly, But it's like sometimes then, when people want to stop and they don't formally just say, like, oh, I'm going to stop, I need I need a break, or I want to do something else. So I want to say to those of you here, when you face that, you for your sake, you just need to say, okay, I'm going to stop. And you should not be apologetic, should not be guilty, just say stop. Rather than 1 foot in, 1 foot out, that really sucks up a lot of energy. That's how we get derailed, I believe, on the path. In the Zen tradition, for example, there's a saying, when you wake up in the morning, and they say, I don't know true or not true, but they're making a point. They say, when you wake up in the morning, you should jump out of bed as if, a tiger hopped into your bed. As if a tiger has hopped into your bed. Because they say that that fuzzy state, when you wake up and getting out of bed, the longer you prolong that period, they say, the more energy it will kind of steal from your waking hours. So think about that. Maybe it's universally true, maybe it's not true. I know some of you will swear by your father and mother's good name and honor. No. For me, I need 1 hour, to eventually wake up and get out of bed. But in the Zen tradition, they say as a meditator. So one quality of Zen practice is like it's very clean. It's very clean, it's very sharp. Maybe a little militaristic for some people. But that kind of sharpness is important. So no need to apply it in the context of sleep if that is very sensitive to you. If you really need your half an hour between your alarm ringing, you know, and you getting out of bed, okay, fine. But in other areas, you know, this kind of determination, just as Adriana, you said, you know, that kind of determination and courage to start applies to end as well. To just say, this is it, right? You can come back later. But when you leave one foot in, one foot out, sometimes I come, sometimes I don't come, you know, it just drains your energy. No point doing that. So this decisiveness is important. Yeah. So I don't like, you know, like kind of this zombie energy, you know, I call it, yeah? kind of just hovering in the air, you know, clean it out. Yeah. Then when you're ready to come, yeah, just say, okay, I want to be back, you know. Changchu sem chorin poche ma ge pa nam ge yuji ge pa nyam pa me pa yang gong ne gong lu pe wer sho. Okay, you all have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.